Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com, analyzing a game played in the team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM, and we're leading this match something like 37 to 14 now. What's happening in the early stages is the match just started 6 days ago. We have a lot of players playing too quick. This happens in every team match. I'm doing my best to attempt to educate you. This is not the way to play correspondence chess. Correspondence chess is a place where you take your time. When the opening plays, you look up the opening. You learn the opening by looking it up. You're testing out variations, seeing what kind of positions you're comfortable with. This will help you learn the opening and the ideas behind it, along with a game that you play, which will let you try to demonstrate some of the ideas that you've developed and learned and read about. Then when the middle game comes, you have plenty of time to analyze the position, choose among candidate moves which moves are quicker, or which moves are better for you, rather. What gives you the best chances. It'll help you increase your evaluation of a position. It'll help you learn how to analyze a position, thinking ahead. And then, of course, when you get to the end game, you can look up the ending, decide which kind of ending you want to go into. If you have a good endgame series like the Averbach series of endings, which covers just about every conceivable two-piece and less ending, that's one piece each. You're going to learn a lot about endings without when it counts, without having to study something you may never use. So, someone plays a lot of correspondence chess, you can really, really learn a lot about chess. And this is what worked for me. Okay, I had a 2,000 rating and played a year's worth of correspondence chess, dropped to 1,900, and then hit 2,200 in 3 months. And then when I took it up again, I really got into high-level, master-level competition, and right now I'm trying to prove what all that taught me. I stopped playing it in 2001, but I was inactive over the board. But in my return to over the board the last year and a half, I know I'm seeing a lot more than I was seeing when I was playing regular tournaments. So, without further ado, let's run through this. And again, this match started 6 days ago, and one side has timed out. So that means this game really only lasted about 3 days. And that's too fast, okay? It's simply too fast. This is not a substitute for over-the-board chess. It is exactly what I've said, a chance to look up and learn to analyze. F3 is rather a peculiar move. I'm sure it's been played before. White's objective is at some point to get E4 in, and Black, I think, plays a good move, strikes back in the center. And then White timidly pushes E3, says, well, I'll get E4 in later. And what's going to happen right now? Watch this. I'll kind of make an illustration here. And I do this sometimes for my students. I compare the positions when I'm going over when they place a piece back where it started. Okay, what's happened here is, let's look at this position after 8 queen d1 and compare it with the position at 6 e3. Now first, let's look at the white pieces. What's changed? The only thing that's changed is a pawn has disappeared on d4. It's still Black's move. Now let's look at here. What's changed in Black's position? Well, his pawn on c5 has disappeared, but he's got a knight on c6. And in effect, what White is saying is, I'll tell you what, let's play, it's your move, but let's just take those pawns off, okay? Let's just take those pawns off c5 and d4, and I'll give you a free move. And that's what basically happens. And now it's White's turn again. Actually, no, I made a mistake here. It's Black's turn. So what White in effect is saying, it's your move, but if you'll take those pawns off c5 and d4, I'll let you play 2 moves in a row as long as one is knight c6. So it's Black's move here, and now it's Black's move here again. He's gained a free move, and Black uses that to castle. But here, I think Black commits a mistake. He needs to continue his development. B6 is warranted. Let's get this bishop developed, okay? B6 is sound and appropriate. But he instead chases this bishop. Now, I don't think it really helps. And I think white does white's position or black's position. And white does the proper thing. He doesn't try to preserve the bishop. He does what he should do: develops a piece. And here, black undertakes a little combination that I think is flawed, and we'll explain it, and I'll show why it's flawed. Again, what black needs to do is play d6 and develop his bishop. But here's what happens. He takes this pawn, and now black commits another mistake. He now violates one of Aaron Nimzovich's rules, which he outlines in my system, which is don't make exchanges which develop or improve the position or scope of your opponent's pieces. Allow him to do this for you. So black liquidates the queens. What this does is it develops the white rook. See? Thanks, freebie. Now, black continues with knight c2 check, and white soon misplays this. I'll show you what happened, and then we're going to come back and look at this position. But I'm going to show you a better move, a better way for white to play this. Here comes a trick. A discovery picking up the bishop on g5. And now white had problems on the e3 square, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But let me show the folly of this combination. What white should have done is played king d2. And this, in turn, puts pressure on this knight. And a knight e4 check trick, knight g4 is no longer there, but a knight e4 check trick is met by knight takes e4, and white has a defender for g5. So really there's nothing better for black to do but bring his knight back, and just like that, black can, in effect, castle queenside. And suddenly white has the better position here. White has all four minors developed, and his one rook is ready to go. Okay? Be just a simple matter to get this rook into play in just a moment. Look at black's position. Two pieces undeveloped. And I was calling for those pieces developed earlier, and now we can see why this is a problem for black. White has the better position. Had white thought about his move, I don't know how long he took on king f2, but if white had actually maybe white missed this this little knight g4 check trick. Maybe white missed that. Well, if he'd analyzed the position and set up on a board, looked at it, he probably would have found it. But you don't find moves like this if you see it's your move. You look at the board and, oh, this looks good, I'll play here. Okay? Whoops. You get this happen to you, and it ruins your whole game. So both sides have been misplaying this game. And I'm going to blame it on moving too quick, because they both had their chances. But here I'll show you where white goes wrong. What he needs to play here is knight f4. Now, this shields the danger from e3. Now, here's the best I could find for black out of this. Let's go ahead and take this, and now we're going to exploit with a pin. Now suddenly we're threatening to take this knight with check in two different ways, and we're threatening to take this. Well, let's just break the pin, get it broken. White is going to be down a pawn here, but I think he has adequate compensation. You probably don't want to take with the pawn. That reduces the scope of this bishop. So let's see what happens if you take here. Well, we're going to kick that bishop out, and you know, black's ahead of pawn, but all the white's pieces are in play. Black cannot develop this bishop to d7. It's going to be taken free. And if he tries bishop e6, well, before I show you bishop e6, if he tries, say, b6, white's going to go play something like bishop d5, or maybe penetrate with the rook at some point, be ready to get into d7 at the right moment, maybe back the king up a square, and then if bishop b7, bring the rook down to the 7th rank. White has adequate compensation for his pawn here. And again, here's the problem for black. He has failed to develop his bishop, which is shutting his rook in. Okay, so his knight b4 trick has been, and queen takes d1 has been exposed, had white taken his time and founded this line. But white didn't take his time. Uh, White comes up with a different idea. Uh, White decides he wants to try to trap this knight. See, now the knight, his routes out of there are covered. Well, there's one route that's perfectly safe, and that's just to take this pawn. And now we have a tempo. We're threatening to take the rook with check. We're also threatening the bishop. How could black have missed this? Well, or white have missed this? Well, the answer is he didn't take his time. There's no other reason for it. The ratings are high enough. I didn't give the ratings around 1700, I think. But that's not important. Okay, so comes up, guards the rook, or guards the bishop. Now uncovers an attack on g4, d4. Suddenly white's position is very precarious. And now where does the rook go next? Well, it's going to take on e3 and win 2 pieces for the rook, right? Well, not so fast. It's black's turn. He just collects another pawn. And now black is 2 pawns up. And there's one thing I didn't cover. I'll come back and look at it. I mentioned in the other line that what about bishop e6? I wanted to cover that. Why it's no good. Let me find it here in the notes. Let's see. If bishop e6, I think white can just happily chop it off. And even though do you want to play king e2? Maybe king g2 would be safer. Again, white's controlling open lines. There's a threat to regain the pawn, and then the e6 pawn is weak. White's activity is probably good enough to hold this position. Let's see, for instance, if rook here, just go ahead and take this pawn, okay? And white's fine. Okay, so let's get back to the position. Rook d4. So knight takes g4 check. The king goes back to e1. And white's position just starts deteriorating rapidly here. There goes the rook. Now black is up the exchange and a couple of pawns. And there goes another pawn. And now this allows a knight fork. I mean, how can you allow these things? Well, you're just not paying attention because you're moving too quick. This wouldn't happen to anybody if you're playing in a real tournament game. This is not going to happen to you. You don't play in a real tournament. You don't play this quick, or do you? Or don't you not play in tournaments? Well, you need to, where you're averaging 2-3 minutes a move, and the white position is falling apart like a house of cards. Black is up 2 exchanges and about 3 pawns. There goes another pawn. Now just happily trade down 2 exchanges ahead. White has no hope here. I don't know why white was playing on, but eventually he just stopped playing, and he's going to have to lose more material here. The only move out of check will allow something like this. And there goes another piece. So, good game by black to a point, but black, you need to slow down because you gave white an open door here to get the better game on you. Okay, so I'm going to clear this and load up the other game. And let's see, what are the ratings? It's here on the PGN, which is a little off screen here. See? I'm loading that up. White is 17th, or the winner is 1731, the loser is 1582. So they were a little closer when it started. But they have high enough ratings both to not make the mistakes they're making. Okay, I don't know who's Skyping. Maybe you're going to have to wait. Okay, let's flip the board. And stop Skyping me. Arr, I'm making a video. Okay. Now, it's kind of early to take here, but here it's interesting. Black does pretty much does the same thing he did as white in the first game. He took a pawn on d5 and retreated the queen to d8. So, white's getting a development advantage right off the bat. I've seen similar positions like in the Caro-Kann or even in the center counter or Scandinavian defense where the queen takes on d5 and goes back, but there's a difference. The e pawn is the one that's traded, not the c pawn. Uh, but nothing developed. It doesn't bode well. So both sides are developing their pieces now. But one advantage White has is White's ahead in development. Okay, White has all 4 miners out and 1 rook, and Black is still catching up. And here's a mistake. Okay, uh, it just defies logic. Why is Black doing this? There's no direct threat on d4. Uh, you're activating this bishop on a new diagonal and giving White a potential d5 push. Just simply develop a piece. You say, well, I'm afraid of h3. Well, then take it, okay? Make White spend a tempo to do it. It's that simple. When you do it without making White spend a tempo, you're basically making what they call in tennis an unforced error, okay? So develop first. When in doubt, develop a piece. Okay, now pressure on d4, but not enough pressure. Maybe he has visions of putting the queen here, forking these 2 pawns. I don't know. But White has time to react to that, and here he does what I said he should do. Push the d5 pawn. Here it comes. So White's getting a space advantage here. And now there's a threat to take on b7. Now bishop e3. So White's bagged the bishop pair here. Now I might not have taken that pawn on d5. I might have just kept this bishop on the board. The logic being that if you ever want to take here, I'll either centralize my knight or take a powerful pass pawn. But this is what White chose. And here's Black moving pawns when he should be developing pieces. What was warranted here? Let's see. Queen e7 with the idea of connecting the rooks. The worst White could... Well, White can't really muster up anything with bishop c5. It's not protected and it's double attacked. So, development is always your better choice. Maybe, let's see, can he get away with throwing this knight into d4? That looks interesting. If White takes, now Black's got some activity here. Let's see, knight e5. Now this protects this pawn indirectly because if queen takes, knight takes f3 check, brings down the house. Looks, this looks potentially playable for Black. Now redeploy the knight to c6. Interesting position. This is one reason why I think White shouldn't have taken on c6. Suddenly the Black pieces spring to life. So, a6 doesn't really help the Black game. And now White's able to get something else developed. He brings the knight into d5, improves his position. Now he's targeting the b6 square, which Black has just weakened. And now Black's kind of tied up, and he gives up the b6 square. Here it comes. That's a square that Black gave to White. White didn't have it. Black created a weakness, and White exploited it. Black did not develop his pieces. Whoops, there's a fork. How can you guys miss these forks, okay? I'll tell you why. You get a move, you look at the board, oh, I'll play this move. You don't even think what your opponent can do because you're not playing correspondence chess correctly. You're not helping your team, you're not helping yourself improve. So White picks up a rook, and the game starts falling apart. And there's really not much more to it because White just starts improving his position, and now that there's tactics to protect the bishop on a5 because there's something loose on c8. Okay, tries knight here. Now he shuts down the c-file, and White's up the exchange, and more material is going to come his way here shortly. See, there's another pawn up the exchange in 2 pawns. Now White just finds chases that knight out of there, and now finds a very simple way to win the game. Going to advance his pawn. He puts it's pretty easy to see. It's got all the squares covered down to the 8th rank. A4 was the only square it was loose. Well, and it was loose on a2. There's no way Black can stop that pawn without giving up something for it. And that's what's going to happen. Is we'll see. That cost him a piece, and guess what? There's another pawn. Okay, so, oops, there was a queen. And at this point, black let his time run out. So going back to when he e5, when white took on c6, again, you see this violates one of the Nimzovich rules. Don't make a move which develops your opponent's pieces or piece. Let him develop his piece on his own. Let him make a move that'll develop yours. So bishop e3 is better here. What's he afraid of? f5? Okay, well, fine. Let him play it. Let's go develop something. All right? Now, when he kicks your bishop, okay, fine. We're going to put it back here. But look, we've got a new diagonal for the bishop. If black plays h5 to shut white out, black's got some weaknesses on his king position, g6. Maybe with due preparation there could be a sacrifice here. King h1, g3. Try to open up the G file and use and attack for white. All kinds of possibilities here. White can do this because he's ahead in development. So, you know, the other alternative is, well, how does black continue his development on the queen side? If he takes here to clear c6 for a knight, that improves the position of this knight. Now the knight's in on d5. Now, good, he got his knight on c6. Okay, well, that's fine. White's still going to develop his pieces. Queen d2. Now, he maybe could go in for knight d4 again. Might not be a bad move, but if you don't play it, you know, there's always queen a7, or queen e7, I mean, and oh no, not in this position. Duh, that hangs the queen. Okay, can he get away with, no, queen a5 is no good. You're going to get penetration here on the 7th. Yeah, this is a perfectly good move. Threatens to double pawns. Put the bishop here. Invite you to play f5. Just to create some weaknesses. Then we'll eventually bring the bishop back to d1. You know, black's okay here. But then white didn't have to take with the knight either. White could take with the pawn. Whoops. Let's see. Going back too far. What I was recommending was taking with the pawn. Now, see, now that keeps this knight out of c6. Okay? And that knight turned out to be useful getting in here. So what does black do? Well, black's got to develop this knight. Do you want to try knight a6? It looks kind of limited over there. The alternative is to move this knight somewhere and then put it on d7. Let's try this. Okay, now he's trying to get it to c5. Does it have a future after c5? Well, what if white plays here? Now if knight c5. Hello, Mr. Knight. You're invited to retreat back to whence you came. If he tries to put it on c7, you know, it's kind of tangled up. It's going to go to e8. Gosh, white has so many good moves here. Let's see. We don't want to play e6 or d6 and let it into e6. Well, when in doubt, develop a piece. Let's go threaten a pawn. Okay. Threatens queen takes b7 for what it's worth. Okay. White's for choice here. He's just better developed. But anyway, thanks so much for taking time to look at this. I hope these suggestions that I'm making improve your play, and good luck to all in the match. Take care.